Well, it's Memorial Day. Well, at least at the end of it, it's end of the day of Memorial Day. I've been seeing a lot of my military friends. They've been sharing some heartfelt messages of soldiers that have fallen. I've seen some wives that I know that have lost their husbands. And I just wanted to do something different in the same vein of thought. I've never really done this because I'm horrible at expressing these things. You know, as I was thinking about Memorial Day, I was thinking about the two components of it. The first of which is the people we are remembering. And in order for that to happen, there has to be people doing the remembering. And so that's the two components of it. There's the remembered and the rememberers, I guess. And as I was thinking about this, a particular instance kept coming up in my mind. This was on a day in Baghdad, Iraq, at a place called Fob Falcon in mid-2006. We were getting ready for a mission in my platoon. And as we were getting our things ready, another guy in the platoon, my roommate, came up to me, got my attention, gave me a hug, and told me he was sorry. Just out of nowhere. And all these years, I have thought about that time so many times. And I think, I'm not going to say his name, but I think what he was doing was because the day before or earlier that day, he had kind of just lost his temper on me and said some things to me that were really, really hurtful. And once we were getting ready for the mission, I think the reality of a life-changing event actually happening kind of set in, and the fear of him having that been the last thing he said to me, he wanted to make it right. And so I think the reason why he did that is because earlier in the deployment, we had lost two soldiers in our platoon. He was there that night, and so was I on that road. We lost our platoon sergeant, and we lost my team leader, and all of us lost friends. We were the scout platoon in the infantry battalion, so we were a really tight-knit group. So we're already different because the rest of the unit is made up of infantrymen, and there's this one platoon of cavalry scouts that was in the HHC. And so we were a real tight platoon. And when we lost Sergeant Devora and Sergeant Clay, it hurt. It hurt a whole lot. And so I want to talk about these two gentlemen, these two NCOs that I pull from a lot. I model myself after, and I can see some of the hallmarks of themselves on me, because I'm sitting in echelons of leadership that are at that level or even higher now. I've served at even higher levels, and I pull on their memory and their example to help guide me. And so in order to give you guys a picture of why this meant, or why these two men meant so much to me, you got to go back to 2005. I just joined the Army, brand new. I'm just turned 19 years old at this point. I turned 19 in basic training, actually. And so I get orders, and my orders say Germany. Now, I'm a kid from California. My dad is a pastor. I hadn't gone anywhere without my family my entire life at this point. And so here I am, graduating from basic training. At that time, the scouts were trained at Fort Knox, Kentucky. So I graduate there and I get orders, I'm going to Germany. I show up to Germany and I meet my team leader. At the time, he wasn't a sergeant, he was a specialist DeVore then. I met him and I immediately gravitated toward him. I found out that I was going to be in Charlie's section of the platoon, and DeVore was my team leader. I was his driver, actually. And so I immediately gravitated to him because he looked like my older brother, of all things. He looked like my older brother, Jesse. And so there was a familiarity about him that because I'll be honest with you, I was scared. I was gone. I was in Germany, of all places. And I didn't know anybody. And so I get there and I have my team leader and I just kind of get under his wing, so to speak. And so DeVore was the type of leader he wasn't the type of leader that said, hey, I need you to do this, this, and this. He was the type of leader that said, hey, watch me do this and then follow me. Clear example of this. That the first example I saw that's memorable for me, that's probably more before that, but the one that really stuck out to me was when we would take our fitness test. We had the 2-mile run. And I likened myself to be a fast runner back then, but not in comparison to Sergeant DeVore. This man he'd run his 2 miles, finish it way before me, get to the finish line, get his time recorded, and then turn around and come get me. I remember running up that road in Baumholder Road. We would take because there was only like 2 places we could take the PT test in Baumholder. There was the track, and then there was this road that was flat, because the rest of Baumholder, if anybody ever been there, is this. It's just up and down. You gotta have a flat surface. So I remember seeing him running at me as I was struggling to get to the finish line, and him yelling at me, telling me I better get up here. And I just loved him for that. I loved him for that. He pushed me to a point and brought something out of me that I didn't even know I had. Another instance of where I saw his leadership, and this is something that I adopt to this day. When we got to Germany, we found out that we had this platoon sergeant, and he was not a good leader. He just was not. He was for all intents and purposes, he was a racist piece of crap. That's what he was. And I remember we were in Kuwait at the time. We were waiting to launch into Iraq, just waiting for the call. And so we were doing some training in Kuwait, and this guy is berating us. He's hazing us, and he's just degrading us in a sense. And to the point where I am just livid. I am offended. And instead of, exposing my emotion in front of everybody, I kind of like lock myself in this porta-john. And I'm in this porta-john and I'm crying. That's what I'm doing. I'm sitting there crying because I'm so angry. And I hear a knock on the door, and hey, Barboa, you all right? And it's DeVore. And I must have sat, and you gotta understand, this is in Kuwait. The porta-john's not sitting in an air-conditioned building. So I'm sitting in this porta-john for like 15 to 20 minutes, just sitting in there. And DeVore standing outside of it, talking with me, hearing me out, talking to me, listening to me. And it exposed this dynamic of leadership that DeVore knew how to include the human dimension in how he led people. He knew how to be hard when he needed to be, and he knew how to be caring and listening at the same time. And I garnered this respect for him. And it just grew as I continued to know him. He was just that kind of guy. And so, I mean, that's why when we lost him and Sergeant Clay, it hurt. Like, it hurt. And I've lost other soldiers and been around other platoons that have lost soldiers in other deployments, but they didn't hurt like that one did. And so, moving on to Sergeant Clay. I met Sergeant Clay when I first got to Germany. I reported to the unit, and he was actually the training room NCO. And so he pulls me and Daniels. We went to basic training together, and we both arrived at Germany at the same time. And he pulls us in, and he says, "Hey, man, I know Sergeant Olcott. You gotta be warned about him." And at the time, I hadn't met Sergeant Olcott, so I didn't know what he was talking about. But obviously, Clay was in the know, and he was already positioning himself to be like a sounding board, to be a person that we could go talk to in the event that we had to deal with this piece of crap leader. And he knew that he didn't want us to just basically base the whole entire army off of our experience with this one guy. And he wanted us to see that there's more than just these type of people in the army. And so this was the dynamic of our relationship. I just saw him as like a big brother that took care of us. And as time progressed, he eventually took over our platoon. And like when we got the news that Clay was taking over for Olcott, I don't know. I know that I could tell that everybody immediately around me was happy. I can't speak for the rest of the guys, but I felt like everybody was happy that this other guy was gone and that Clay was in. And so when we lost him, it hurt, man. We lost Clay and Devorah on the 1st of April. And this is the reason why you never hear me talk about April Fool's Day jokes, because ain't nothing funny on that day. Ain't nothing funny at all. We lost him on a road in the middle of Baghdad to an IED. And so every year around that time, I think about them. And around this time of the year, I think about them. I think about all the other soldiers that have to live with that hurt. I remember some years later on a different deployment, I remember watching a memorial we were doing for another soldier. I remember I turned over to one of the other NCOs and I said, "You know what, man, I'm not hurt in the same sense as that they're hurt, like the guys, because the guy who got killed, he was in a different platoon and I wasn't close to him. But I turned to him and I said, the reason why this hurts right now is because I know that those young guys over there know what it feels like now. Now they know that pain. And that's not a good feeling. In the Army, we talk about dealing with these things, but we really don't. And on days like this, we need to deal with them. We need to talk about them. We need to reach out to each other. We need to band together and be there for each other. And remember our fallen brethren. Because at the end of the day, all the other things and outside factors, and opinions, and whatever it may be, they didn't matter to us on that road in Baghdad. I didn't care about what your political affiliation was. I just wanted my friends back. I didn't want them to die. So as we close out this day, I just wanted to just pause and think about them. To think about the ones we lost and the ones that are left, carrying on their memory.